Ooh, there we go. Turn that music down a little bit. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Ask the Parent Coach. Today we have a behavioral performance edition of Ask the Parent Coach with our co-host, Cathy Maday from Wingspan Performance. So excited to have you here today, Cathy. Thank you for
excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And to everyone out there, we're going to just use a little behavioral performance strategy and see how that looks with a business perspective and a human with a family.
Yes, yeah.
Cathy, did you have a quote to share with us that you like?
Yeah, when as you and I were talking about this and preparing, there is a quote that immediately came to mind. And that is, it's actually from, I found my book, my copy of the Tao Te Ching for Parents by William Martin. Yeah.
I think you gave me mine.
I did. Yeah. So just so everyone knows, it's ancient advice for modern parents. And the quote that really, it was an aha for me is, the product of parenting is not the child, it's the parent.
Ooh. Right? We don't think about that as parents. Like, I think we think that we're creating the product, not that we're actually the product.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there are so many examples. I've often said, like, as an example of that, the girls, when Brittany and Madison, when they were young, were my best teachers for getting better at clear communication. Right. And so such a great example where I was the one growing and learning from them. I'm the product, not me. Like, yeah, making this little human into something.
Yes, that's so true. And that just reminds us that the primary outcome of raising children isn't about developing our child. It's about our own growth and our own transformation as a parent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I love the way you said that.
Yeah, they really are our best teachers. Nail on the head. So, hey, friends, I am Coach Heather McElroy with Momentor. I am a workplace well-being strategist, and I champion for parents in the workplace and expand the reach of people leaders and just help them really take care of when they're a place that really values their employees, their team members, and especially the parents on their team. I'm the one that comes in and helps them find ways to do that. I speak, guide, mentor, and lead workshops that strengthen human connection across families and teams. And today, I am so proud to have a co-host here who is a badass boss babe, and she's in the house. Cathy Maday is the founder and CEO of Wingspan Performance and the creator of a proprietary system called the Wingspan Performance System. It's a practical and battle-tested framework for elevating leadership behavior and communication. And boy, are you in for a treat today. If you are listening to this, you are going to walk away with some amazing nuggets from her in our conversation in this. Over 2 decades, she's been leading Fortune 5 executives and entrepreneurs and everything in between. She's best known for her bold, caring approach. Not my words, many other of her clients' feedback in that. And it absolutely is the nail on the head there. Bold, caring is her approach. And with so much love and direct power. She creates safe, high-trust environments where transformation happens. And she was my very first coach, and she's one of my dearest friends. So I was laughing a little bit this morning. I was adding a couple notes in my prep sheet, and I was thinking, should I reference the book club where we met?
And right.
Mary Storms and Denise Altman, who forced me to be in the book club. I'm sure they invited you, but they were like, Heather, you need to be in this.
They coerced me with the promise of wine, and I don't have to read the book.
Which is very true.
And then our first meeting was out at the pool, and I was like, okay, I can do this.
Oh, that's a great memory.
And then you and I were like immediate soul sisters.
Absolutely. Just been a bright light in my life ever since.
Oh my gosh. Ditto, girl, ditto. And thank you for such a lovely introduction. I'm super excited to be here, Heather, because the work that you do with parents is so essential because of all the challenges they're facing on the home front. I hear on a weekly basis, even though I work in the business context with business leaders, I hear on a weekly basis that they're facing stressful issues on the home front. And I get really excited though, because they, as they continue to practice the communication and behavior tools from the Wingspan system, I also get to hear the stories about I'm closer to my son because I'm practicing this at home, or I will hear, I've heard many times, my wife loves you.
She doesn't know who you are, but she loves you, right?
Yes, yes. Because they're creating those stronger relationships at home and more satisfying experiences. And I'm really excited for your viewers and your community to gain some of those same tools and create more of those moments for themselves and their families.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And this is going to be an incredible conversation. Just get ready to write down some nuggets. You're going to want to implement them right away, and in such a beautiful way too. It's not I have to, which is an illegal word.
Yes, yeah.
We get to incorporate new ideas into our parenting, into our work life, and Cathy's going to share some good ones with us today. So I have a question. What kind of drew you into coaching, and like where was this flame lit when you developed the performance system, the Wingspan Performance System, and the unique coaching methods that you use?
Oh my gosh, where it definitely was over time, like absolutely at the heart of the system is, comes back to when I was young, growing up on the Bad River Indian Reservation in northern Wisconsin. I was really fortunate to grow up poor. And, poor, like there were a couple times in the winters where we went without heat and hot water. And I got my first gun when I was 8 because hunting and fishing wasn't for sport or hobby. It was for dinner. And I really, I was always looking for opportunities. I was always asking what I could do around the house, chores. I would ask my grandma if I could clean her car, and I'd be excited if I found any, pennies or nickels, like change that had maybe fallen out of people's pockets. And when I was 12, I was starting to care about things. I grew up such a tomboy with all my brothers. That I didn't really care about the things that little girls cared about until middle school. And then I wanted the new clothes, and I wanted the new school supplies, and I wanted the zipped up, the folder that zipped up, a trapper keeper. Yeah. And the only way that I was going to be able to get those things is if I figured out a way. And so at 12, I did my first 40-hour-a-week job working for the tribe, clearing land, using yard implements that we don't even let our children use these days.
Frightening, or adults maybe.
Yeah. And I remember exactly where I was when I got my first paper paycheck with my name and what looked like a lot of money. And it was like such a memorable moment because I was thinking to myself, from a little bit of work, I created options and opportunities that didn't exist before. And so that's definitely at the heart of the Wingspan system, and definitely part of the catalyst in developing a system is I really want individuals to be equipped and reminded that they are powerful and they can create those opportunities for themselves, no matter where they are and no matter where they've been. And so, fast forward a billion years ago before I started Wingspan. I worked in technology, systems implementation, system security. My colleagues were absolutely brilliant. They took me under their wing. They mentored me, and I was seeing them get passed up for the projects that they wanted or the career advancements that they wanted. And I remember I kept getting asked to be on projects, even though I was not the strongest in our system security group. And I finally asked one of the directors one day, I said, Scott's like the dude for this. Why are you asking me to be on this project? And he looked at me like I was, had two heads. And he said, because you can talk to people.
Mm.
And that this was another big aha. First of all, I just didn't know that was even valuable to people. Back in college, I worked full time with college, and so I worked in the student computer lab. I worked with all the students and how they were using technology. I also supported all the staff and faculty on their computers, and so I got to work with all these different kinds of people. And I became a translator. I became really good at translating. When this director told me that, he's like, because you can talk to people, that was another one of those ahas. And I was so committed to developing a very practical system for highly technical professionals, perhaps most of them who are introverted, to be so much more effective in their interpersonal performance and in their leadership performance without feeling like they had to become somebody else. I wanted them to see they could be really powerful and creative and all on their own, and to be able to create, going back to when I was little, create those opportunities for themselves. And so I quit my consulting in technology. I started Wingspan in 2003. And we continue to grow and hear the most amazing stories. And so I want to get the system and the tools in the hands of, millions of people.
Absolutely. Oh, what an amazing thing that would be to have everyone have these tools and be able to use them in their home and their work life. And I love it. I don't think I've ever heard all of that story. So even more. I'm curious. So there's some curious research that I was looking up. And when we talk about behavioral performance in our family life, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was these long-lasting effects of parenting behaviors. So both in the child's development and what happens as the child becomes an adult.
Yeah.
And some of there were 3 key parent behaviors that affected 4 key child outcomes. So I want to share those quick.
Yeah.
Nurturing was a key parent outcome. First, I'll say the 3 key parent outcomes. So nurturing versus overprotecting. And in my language, that's power with parenting rather than power over parenting.
Same as my language with leaders.
And then active involvement in their child's life, and quality connected interaction. So showing substantial measurable effects these things have on the lifespan of our children.
Wow.
On educational behavioral outcomes, right? That one kind of makes sense. But lifespan was kind of, really?
That's surprising.
Right. Mental health and self-esteem, which also kind of goes back to what we would expect. And the adult economic status. So hundreds of thousands of dollars in their lifetime can be attributed to having nurturing, actively involved, and quality connected interaction with a parent.
Wow.
So, kind of crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And when you're talking about those, you really prompted me to think about my dad. So Heather, my mom passed when I was 4. And so my dad was my mom and my dad. And as you name those, again, his active involvement and the nurturing and what was the third one? The quality time?
Quality connection, yep.
Oh my gosh. he like nailed all those. He just was so amazing in all of those. I never heard it, communicated that way. Wow, and this last one too about economic like standing almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Economic status
status.
as you're an adult is affected by those three: active involvement, quality of connection, and then your nurturing, not overprotection.
Yeah.
It sounds like you didn't have that very specifically too. Like, here, you're 8. Here's a gun. Like, you're 12. You want to work in the field with these heavy tools and sharp objects, right?
Yeah.
So not a lot of overprotecting going on there.
No. Growing up on the reservation, even at 5 or 6 years old, I could be a couple miles away from home in the woods. Like, it was just normal.
Wow.
Yeah. So definitely not the overprotecting.
Definitely not. Which, gave you opportunities to explore the world and fail and get hurt and learn important lessons that we get to learn if we're not in a space of being overprotected. And obviously we're parents and we want to care for our children. That doesn't mean we don't take care of them. It just means we don't overprotect them.
Yeah. Yeah. How often, I'm curious, how often does that come up as you're working with parents and children, families? How often is that coming up?
And talking about power styles?
Yeah. And the overprotecting and versus nurturing.
Every time. Yeah. And it's interesting. I'll talk a little later too about, I saw Michelle Picard, I think is how her last name is pronounced, speak this week. And I have a book that I recommend to tons of parents too. And she's writing a new book really specifically about overprotection in our culture of control.
Yeah.
And I saw her speak this week in Charlotte. She's actually from the Charlotte area, or has lived in the Charlotte area a long time. And I was just blown away listening to her talk about what her new book is going to be about. And I love her old books too.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
wonderful.
It's a new epidemic, right? Of that over parenting, overpowering, and not giving our children that space to learn and grow and fail.
Well, and to see themselves as capable.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that's wow. Well, I'm looking forward to when you write a book.
It's in here.
For sure.
Right. So talk a little bit, Cathy, if you will, about like the behavioral performance that's affecting our businesses and the culture and people in the workplace. Share a little more about.
Yeah, so there are a couple stats I'm going to read, and then I'm going to share a little bit more on that. A couple of stats on behavioral performance in business. 92% of employees say a positive experience at work is crucial to their performance. Those who feel heard are 4.6 times more likely to be high performers. I was surprised that it was that high. Yeah. I know that. I mean, I see it every day. I just didn't know it was that high. 83% of HR leaders link behavioral performance. 83% of HR leaders link company culture directly to business success. Absolutely. So a little more context around this is, as we're working with leader teams in organizations, like you said, very large organizations, as well as small businesses. What culture is it's the aggregate behavioral performance of the individuals in the group. That's all culture is. We actually encourage those individuals to stop using the word culture, because when leaders are talking about culture, most of the team members think, well, that's just this big, amoeba thing that I have no control over. What am I going to do with that? That's a big thing. Versus, if we look at the behavioral level, which that's all culture is, Well, people are in full, every single one of us is 100% responsible for our behavioral performance. And it's dynamic. We can change our behavioral performance. And so, where I spend my time is we help businesses solve multi-million dollar problems by helping them to learn and practice the Wingspan system, because it's focused on healthy, high behavioral performance and communication. And so it's amazing to see these business leaders, have their aha moments as they see that it's the, both the technical and the behavioral performance that's generating the business performance. And nearly always behavioral performance is at the root of those problems.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure we can say the same thing on the home front.
Yes, yeah. And while I haven't been using behavioral performance in talking with families, I talk about patterns, which does, our behavioral performance is very much often a pattern that we're reusing, or just like on the wallpaper, right? Like there's a pattern and it happens again and again and again. Maybe it's carried down from our parents and our parents' parents, and those things can all come into play. So yeah, in the workplace, I'm just so blown away by the work that I've seen Wingspan doing, and helping companies really get to the root of it and find that culture, find the whatever you want to call it, find that behavioral performance, a healthy high behavioral performance, rather than it being culture.
Yeah, because when it's healthy, then they're not burning themselves out. They find that they're much more effective, not just in those stronger business results. They're building stronger relationships with their teammates, with themselves, and then of course that's who they're taking. They're taking a better self home to their most important people, and that's what I am still so jacked up about. Even though I've been doing this work for 25 years.
Amazing. I'm so glad you're here, Cathy.
Thank you.
I'm nicknaming our edition today, "Oh, Behave." My favorite Austin Powers accent, right? Gotta have a little fun.
Yeah.
We always have.
Yes.
So, all right. Welcome to Ask the Parent Coach Behavioral Performance Edition. Today, Coach Cathy Maday and I will talk about the impact of behavioral performance. We already have a little bit, and discovering new ways to look at it in our lives to help shape strong, connected relationships, and change our lives and the lives of our children. Okay. We could impact how much money our children make in the future, even with this work. And the relationships with our colleagues and our friends and our partners. Yes. So we'll offer some insights on behavioral performance, both at home and in the workplace. Shall we dive in?
Let's do it.
Yay! So question number 1 is a performance, state, and energy focused question, Cathy. So as parents, our energy levels are constantly shifting, right? So some days we feel great, others we feel just overwhelmed, drained. How does our current physical, mental, and emotional energy, and I know you refer to it as our performance state, affect how we show up at work and at home? And what can we do to be more aware of the state that we're in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another way, we're using this term, I started using this term many years ago, behavioral performance. Another way for us to talk about this is, so in life, so how we're creating our experiences and our moments, just moment to moment to moment, is our behavioral performance. And so in every moment, how we are making our choices, how we are not only communicating with others, how we're communicating with ourselves. It's this how, in terms of behavior. in every single moment, how we're creating our experiences comes directly from our current physical, mental, and emotional energy. We call that our current performance state. And so, because we're incredibly dynamic. And so, if we, so for example, one of the tools that we will share with leaders, it's simple, not easy, is what we call the 2-word check-in.
Okay.
And I don't know about you. I, just like a lot of the leaders that I work with, are running 200 miles an hour, working to get it all done. We've got the pressure at work, and then we've got the soccer and the groceries and oh my gosh. So we're 200 miles an hour. Well, the 2-word check-in is designed to prompt us to stop, take a beat, and literally check in with our current physical, mental, and emotional energy. And to find and be honest about it, and to find the two most, I say, unfiltered, colorful words to describe our current physical, mental, and emotional energy. And so, and what that does is first of all, just the practice of the 2-word check-in itself helps us to interrupt that autopilot. Earlier you said patterns, and in the Wingspan system, we talk about habits or autopilot. So anytime that we're operating out of a pattern or out of autopilot, we're unaware, we're unintentional. And so as soon as we just stop and use an exercise like this to stop, we interrupt our autopilot and we come out of this unintentional, unaware space and come up into what we call our performance zone. So just the practice itself helps us to get out of habit and to become aware and intentional. Now, the 2 words that we identify. So like in this moment, Heather, if you were to stop and check in with your current physical, mental, and emotional energy, what would be your what are those 2 really colorful words?
Ooh, so my 2-word check-in right now, and I've done a couple already today.
Me too.
Right now, I would say joyful and excited.
Nice. Let's see, my 2 words, sisterly and feather.
Feather.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking of all the things around our friendship and our connection that involve feathers. That totally could make sense.
Yeah. And that's what leaders, as they start to practice this, first of all, it really helps them to get out of this whole running. Because of course, anytime that we're unaware of the impact we're having on the people around us. And a lot of times also if we're unaware, we're creating both wanted and unwanted. Except we're unaware. So any of the unwanted, we're oblivious to that. And we just keep recreating that.
Or maybe it's even something we didn't even know we want. And
that's exactly, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Parents on the way, you go home over dinner, whatever, in these little everyday interactions with their children, if they're in autopilot and they're having those interactions, they may be accidentally creating something with their children that they don't really want. That's exactly what you said, except they're unaware of it. And so it keeps going. So the practice helps us to get out of autopilot. And then it helps us, what we say, you're getting really important information from yourself for yourself. Because if you are, like for you to be in a joyful place, that's awesome. And that's also good for you to know. But let's say you're in a frustrated place. What we say and what we help leaders to recognize is that's important information. So your frustration has important information for you.
Okay. Fantastic.
So that as leaders start to practice this, they also start to see their trends. Where do they trend? And of course, if they're practicing it multiple times throughout the day, it helps them during the day and also on the home front with their
Yeah.
most important people.
Right. So can we only use it to gauge where we are right now?
Well, here's the really cool thing is it's so important for us to, for all of us, if we want to create more of what we want and less of what we don't, it's really important for us to learn where we're at, stop and check. This is honestly unfiltered. This is where I'm at, because that's really important information. Now, let's say it's not where you want to be. There's a sister exercise we call the 2-word intention. And that is, based on this next segment in my day. So, 10 a.m. this morning, I have a meeting. I'm going to have a very different intention for that meeting than 5 p.m. this evening. When I'm done with work, I go home to my family. Very different intention. And so the 2-word intention is for people to really remind themselves, hey, you're in charge. You're actually in charge of how you feel. You're in charge of determining your performance state, and you can choose it.
And stay, that brings us back to what we were talking about being connected with our kids and present with them. Like that exponentially results in great things for our children, for their adulthood, for us when we're interacting with them, for our connection to them as a child and as an adult.
Yeah.
What a big difference.
I am so guilty of this. I'm really guilty of, I'm in my performance zone a lot during the day when I'm working. And then here's where I'm guilty. I go in autopilot at the end of the day. When I'm with my husband and what I learned from thousands of leaders is because we work with hard chargers, high achievers, that's common, is that at the end of the day, they slide down into autopilot, and then that's the place. And they learn and real as they're working with Wingspan advisors, they learn, oh my gosh, that is not, that's not what I want anymore.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, because when we're in autopilot, we're not sincerely connecting with this other person.
Yes. And I think about like ways that can play out too. So I'm leaving a work meeting, I'm, feeling tense or stressed, and in the car on the way home, like what a great time to do that check-in.
Yeah.
And go, ooh, like I didn't even realize, like you were alluding to before, like sometimes we don't even realize where we are until we do the 2-word check-in. And then thinking, okay, I'll be home in 30 minutes or an hour if you live in Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's going to be, I'm going to tell a little story in a second about it. Like, where do I want to be when I get to that next place? And, I'm going to pick my child up from their after school program. Like, yeah, that's not what, I don't want to be checked out.
Yeah.
On autopilot when I pick him up. I want to be like connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Or stressed out. I don't want to be stressed out.
Yes.
I want to give my daughter better from me.
Yes. That's beautiful.
So they're simple, very simple exercises. And we hear from leaders again, over and over and over again, really they're simple, not easy even. It sounds simple until people start to practice it. Though once you get going, they're like, this in and of itself is a game changer for them.
I agree. And you taught me the 2-word check-in 20 years ago. What a long time. And I use it a lot, and I love that. Tell us a story about how you used that 2-word check-in at home.
Oh gosh. Literally, I exercise the 2-word check-in every day. And I exchange it not only with our Wingspan team, we exchange our check-in and our intention every single day. And I exchange it with leaders all day long. And on the home front, I recall uh, I recall one day I was in the kitchen and I was cooking, and I heard, and there's walls. It's not this open space, and I heard Brittany yelling. This was many years ago. She was little. She was yelling at the dog, and I then yelled at her to stop yelling at the dog. And then all of a sudden, as I'm yelling through the wall, all of a sudden I got really hot because I realized I'm yelling, and then I'm wondering, why is she yelling? And so I'm like, she is learning that from me. I'm doing that, and because I was in that autopilot, and so I got really hot, and so I stopped, did my 2-word check-in, and and then did my 2-word intention to, that's not how I want to interact with my daughter, and look at what I'm teaching the kids, that we yell at each other, so I'm telling you, it's just so powerful. So
Wow, what a great example too. And I use the term modeling a lot when I'm talking to parents, and it's the same thing. What kind of example are we setting? What are we modeling for our kiddos? And is it what we want to be? That could even be your own 2-word check-in of like, is this the modeling that I want to be?
I'm in that moment, I made a commitment to myself that I would walk my butt into the other room and talk to Madison and Brittany. And I've shared this story with other leaders too, because we're in those habits, and on the home front, they have far-reaching consequences. And even like these stats that you pulled up, they have far-reaching consequences, just our everyday habits.
Yes, they really do. I've been using your 2-word check-in, for so many years, and I find it, like, at its core, it just brings me to an acute awareness of myself in a moment, and if I'm not paying attention, it helps me sort of zone back in, right? And I had an experience yesterday where I was headed to meet a friend, who I have been connected to for a long time, and I have some ADHD tendencies going on in general. So I'm like, squirrel, squirrel. And I knew I was going to be running a little bit late. And she messaged me that she was already at the table. I knew I was at least 20 minutes out. Called her. And then I hit every construction zone, all the traffic, everything on the way there. So I became more and more anxious and more stressed about A, being late, B, the traffic in general. And, just, I don't know if there's anything that can really get me fired up. It's bad drivers. And I'm, aware of all these things, with myself, and I parked my car. I was very late to meet her. I knew I was going to be late, but I was very late to meet her. And I just let her know I was parking, and I sat there for a moment and took a couple breaths to regulate my nervous system.
Yeah.
And I did a 2-word check-in, and I was like, and even more than a 2-word check-in, because I kind of already knew where I was, I did a 2-word intention of how I wanted to walk into this lunch. And I think back to like past experiences where I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so late, and I feel terrible, and like I could start it that way. And I chose that's not how I want to start. My reconnection with this friend who I've haven't seen in years, except bumping into her more recently at a chamber event. And I walked in as my authentic self. I sat down. I did apologize I thanked her, which is something I've been adjusting, like my language too, right? So it's not, oh, I'm so sorry. It's thank you so much for your patience. I know you've been waiting for me for a long time. And and just being authentic in that space. And that was one of my intentions. I'm just going to be authentic. I am very scattered right now, and I am working on that. And I'm so happy to be sitting here and having lunch with you. And you know what? It was so beautiful. Her name is Alice Joyce. I've been a friend for many years, and she's just a delightful person in general. And she and I got into this amazing conversation about family, about
Mm.
work, about connection, because I didn't start that conversation with a, frantic
Yeah.
apology. I
Yeah.
started the conversation with connection.
Yeah.
And we had such a great lunch.
Oh, I love that. I love that story too, Heather, because the two-word intention, the two-word check-in and the two-word intention, again, they're simple, but there's a great deal of depth and actually a great deal of science behind it. And so one of the things that I thought would be valuable for your viewers is that when we're up in our personal stress zone, like you're describing,
Yeah.
the very practice of stopping and putting words, descriptive words, around our physical, mental, and emotional energy, the very practice of that actually helps us neurologically to shift from that stress, fight, flight, or freeze part of our brain and shift into our prefrontal cortex. And so we literally are taking ourselves out of our personal stress zone and back down into, what I call our performance zone. Just that act. And there's, a ton of science and research around it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. I see it too. I've been using the two-word check-in with groups that I'm coaching or working with, individuals. And it shines every time. And one of the other things that I find using it is we get a bead on how everyone else in the room is feeling.
Yeah. So we use it in teams. We work with leader teams, and how we exercise it is every person only shares their two-word check-in or the intention, depends on which one we're exercising. Every person shares only their two-word intention. And so there's a couple things that are happening. Number one, I'm more responsible for myself and how I'm showing up. And I'm more responsible to my teammates because I'm sharing where I'm at. And so after everyone goes, and that of course builds equity at the table, instead of, some people want to tell a 10-minute story, some people don't want to talk at all. And so it builds that equity at the table. And then a lot of times what will happen is now the team might dive into something they weren't anticipating. And that's the most important thing for the team to focus on. And so I love that you're using this, with the teens that you're working with the parent clients that you're working with. It really is powerful.
Love it. All right. We'll jump into question number 2. We talk about understanding performance and our personal contribution. So the question is, it's frustrating when people don't meet my expectations. Whether it's a colleague at work, a family member not doing their part at home, we often focus on what they are doing wrong. I'm definitely guilty of this. So how can we get clearer in these types of situations and understand like the part that I play in that situation and what I actually want to have happen be more like top of mind than what I'm complaining about or unhappy about?
Yeah, every single person that is listening to this has multiple situations where they're also frustrated because someone isn't doing what they want or expect of that person. And again, examples on the home front.
Me? Okay.
Not just you. Examples on the home front, examples on the on the work front. And that starting point, though, around first and foremost, going back to the two-word check-in, acknowledge you're frustrated, acknowledge that you're angry. There's a lot of really outdated, awful advice around leaders, don't show that you're frustrated, or, like they're encouraged to cover up the fact that they're frustrated or angry.
Mask it. Like,
Or
I gotta
mask it.
mask and pretend everything's okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And, people know better. Like, so we will often say that frustration or wherever you're at is a fantastic starting point. Let's just not make it the ending point.
Mm.
And there's a core process within the Wingspan system that we call the personal contribution process. And it really is about taking this frustration and stress and transforming it into healthy high performance and stronger relationships. And so the personal contribution process goes like it's got 6 steps. I'll share the first 5 steps. Step 1 is articulating. There's a formula. We say person X is or isn't Y, which is creating problem Z. And what that does is just articulating that helps us to get the information in the frustration and start to get clear on what actually is or isn't happening.
Mm.
And so step 1 is stating what's the current situation.
So it's not just in my head. It's actually like,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's not just so what I'll often say, like, if you're frustrated, I'm going to tell you, you're not frustrated for no reason. There's very good information in that. And so it's really important to take a close look at it. And so step 1 helps to get clear on what actually is happening. Step 2 is what's identifying my contribution to this situation, because like you said, oftentimes we will focus on what the other person is or isn't doing, and we forget that we are co-creating all experiences. And so step 2 is identifying what we call the self contribution, so my contribution to this situation. Step 3 is also identifying, though, and articulating what we call our partner's contribution. So person X, the person you're focused on, that's your partner as you're co-creating this. But what is their contribution? It's really important to get to build some muscles around articulating behavioral performance objectively. And so that's part of what step 2 and step 3 are, is identifying each person's contribution, and as best you can, articulate it in terms of observable behavior. What that does is it helps us to speak factually versus through judgment or opinion. It helps us to get that clarity. Step 4 is identifying what's the desired situation. So we've got the current situation where we're frustrated. A lot of times, because we can be really frustrated about the situation, people will focus more on what they don't want than getting really clear on what they do want or expect. So step 4 is what is it you actually do want or expect? Step 5 is, how are you going to change your contribution? Because it's really magical. Because when you change your part of the equation, you change the whole equation. And you're in a much more, you're remembering it. It helps individuals to remember, I'm powerful when I'm focused on my part of the equation, because that's the only thing I control.
So true.
And at any time that we are focused on the other person and we're frustrated and we start to hyper focus on the other person, we get further and further and further away from our personal power to create what we want.
Wow. Yeah. You are like giving us a psychology lesson.
Yeah.
It's I found myself like believing someone else will know me well enough to know like what I'm thinking, right? They know what I'm thinking. They know what I want right now.
That's at home with Ivan. Like, he should just know. Damn it. He should just know. Yeah. I was working with a leader recently, and she was learning. She was going through our digital course, Wingspan Performance Academy, and one of the situations she was working through the personal contribution process was that her boys were not, filling the dishwasher. There were a couple chores at home that they were not doing, and as she worked through it, she recognized, I have not said out loud exactly what I expect them to do. And it just never occurred to her because again, she had it up in her mind. And that's like every family, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And just from working through getting that clarity and working through the personal contribution process quickly, doesn't take a lot of time. She had this aha moment. She communicated. She changed her part of the equation. She communicated with her sons, and they started doing it.
I love it. That's, I go back to Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead. And one of the phrases that comes up for me every time is clarity is kindness. And like just being clear with someone of our desires or, making an ask. And all of that can go back to the connection too. Like if you aren't making a connection with your kids and you expect them to load the dishwasher, like they're not going to do it. And I can even write a note and ask my child to do something. And if I don't make that personal connection of, hey, I wrote you a little note here. There's a couple of things on this list. Can you take care of those today? Will you be accountable to do those? Yeah. And, he'll say yes. He is 17 and he is, it's funny because he was really good at it for a while. And now it's like, things. But back to that, I was telling you about Michelle Icard talk the other day. She was just saying at some point, like we get to she used a T.S. Eliot quote, teach me to care and not to care. Like how many details do I need to hold on to in that? Like a good example would be like nagging or, when something needs to be done, that those types of things tend to, just make it less easy to get an expectation met, right? When we're nagging or trying to control a situation. So I don't know. It's kind of, I love the process and, using it, even adapting it in our family is a great way to stay connected and not have misunderstandings.
It's a completely different ballgame when I'm going to you and, recognizing my contribution to something. And then when I come back to you and say, hey, I realize I haven't said out loud, I'm counting on you to do this. Very different than you haven't been listening to me. You haven't been paying attention.
Or nagging like that,
Yeah, for sure. That owning up of my part of the equation. And similar to when you were going into your lunch with your friend, you didn't come in with a bunch of apology. You owned up and you expressed gratitude, and because she was, I'm sure, very gracious about it.
I was.
And a whole different game changer. Yeah,
very much. Yeah, I don't like feeling out of my performance zone, as you call it. And I really embrace how I feel when I'm in the space where I'm not feeling frustrated with someone else or with myself, or it can just, I don't know, like driving can sometimes be a zone breaker for me. Yeah. And Wingspan language, like I love to drive and I really hate poor drivers. Like I say, hate's a strong word, but they're not my favorite. Right. And I was just even telling you the other day, I almost was sideswiped by somebody, and I have to work extra hard to like stay regulated and in a healthy zone for me. And I may have a history of some road, I don't know if you'd call it rage, but some definite swear words that came out of my mouth while I was driving, for sure.
Yeah, and this is a really fantastic combination of the personal contribution process, which you can do very quickly for just everyday things, and the two-word intention. So I'm driving to a doctor's appointment, and same, saw construction, and I said a two-word intention. I'm like, I'm choosing how my drive's going to go. The more that we're choosing how we are going to show up, or the more that we're choosing the experience we want to create, then we start to reduce the amount of influence we allow other people's behavior to have on us.
Yes.
And that's unbelievably liberating. And it, like you said, it feels awesome, because I stop telling myself that my feelings and my performance state rely on other people's behavior.
Mm. Wow. Mic drop. Totally. Oh, good stuff.
I would love for, again, anyone listening to this to really put it into practice, create their own evidence, and have that feeling of liberation and remembering how powerful they are.
Love it. Yes. All right. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump into our last question. So, intentional communication and accountability is our next topic. Communication breakdowns and lack of follow through happen everywhere, including inside of our families, right? How can we learn from common workplace challenges like unclear expectations, bubble wrap language, and avoiding accountability to have better communication and accountability practices in our
I'll go back to that example with the leader. I'll call her Amy, and she was really frustrated and really irritated. And one of the things that I helped her as we were working her situation through the personal contribution process, I said, you're not able to exercise accountability unless there's something to hold them accountable to. And so these absolutely go hand in hand. If there isn't clear communication around the expectation, the desire, the request, the directive, the commitment, if that's not clear in the first place, there's no exercising accountability. And so a couple things that are super common is that we have, just like you and I were talking about, can't you read my mind? Leaders will, on an everyday kind of basis, they will have these implicit expectations that they don't make explicit to their team members. And so that's the first thing is that I would encourage people to practice is start to say out loud. and this is actually a component in the system, is a simple say it out loud in the practice. And so when people are working through the personal contribution process, when they're identifying step 2, which is their contribution, one of the questions that I'll tell them to ask themselves is, what haven't I said out loud? And so that is a really powerful question for individuals to be asking themselves. What haven't I said out loud to my son, to my daughter? Like that, that will open up all kinds of clarity for those exchanges. And often too, individuals will be in the habit. So I'm going to go back to what you said, patterns or habit of not stating a clear who or a clear when, especially in a family. Will someone load the damn dishwasher? Or worse, no one's loaded the damn dishwasher. who do you want or expect to be loading and when? When Amy communicated, as she and I were talking about her son's not loading the dishwasher, I said, well, how much is this a one-time thing versus an ongoing responsibility? And she stopped and was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I just hadn't even thought about it.
Right.
I have in my mind ongoing, though, just these are very simple ways where when we focus on that clear communication of a who and a when, and we also prompt ourselves, what haven't I said out loud? That clear communication, now there can be some healthy accountability when someone isn't following through.
Such a great example. And thank you for giving all the, the other ideas too in there, because I think we a lot of times think we say things and are super clear, and we are maybe just clear to ourselves.
I said that in my head.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Give me an example of like changing your language around a task or an expectation that you had at home. Anything come to mind that?
Yeah, for sure. So now that Brittany and Madison are off adulting, and it's just Ivan and I at home, definitely language. So I'm going to go back to like making a passive aggressive statement, like the trash is full. Okay. What exactly, what's my objective in making that statement? So some language that I'll use between Ivan and I are, hey, Ivan, if you take the trash out, I'll, unload the dishwasher.
Hmm.
So not only am I saying out loud what I would like him to do, I'm saying, hey, if you do this, I'll do that. And
Okay.
it creates that powerful partnering on the home front. And that language change. And I've had leaders start to use that at home, because with their spouses or and they can do it with their children. I remember one leader, he's got twins, and very similar. If you two pick up the toys and put them, put the games away, I'm going to go start dinner. And before, it's like he was having a little struggle with them to get them to clean up their toys. As soon as he just started to say, hey, if you guys do this, I'm going to go do that, they started doing it.
Oh, I love that. And, we can use that in an option format too. Would you like to go cut up the vegetables for dinner, or,
Yes,
clean up your desk right now? And
yeah, absolutely. Or with our significant others. Yeah. Hey, do you want to take care of this or this? I'll do whichever one. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah, I love that, because people really enjoy having a choice in that or two. And if you're recognizing what things need to be done, giving a choice is just another way of connecting. Like, I'm not telling you what to do. Here are the two things that need to be done. Which one would you like to do? And I'll do the other one. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So my pattern is often to just get really annoyed when my kid is, not being, it's obviously they bring us a new perspective, and you've had teenagers, so you know this too. But I'm guiding him to be independent and responsible, and one of the, which looks like jobs around the house. And I give him reminders and I nag him, and I know that is not the best way to go about doing this. And man, it's a practice. I'm really working on, like, kind of, and it's funny because when I hear from families, how do I make my kid empty the dishwasher? How do I make and that language is so funny, because even my first parenting class that I attended, my kiddo was 6, and I walked in the door going, I'm going to figure out how to fix my kid and make him fall in line with what I think he should be into. And I was so blown away immediately, understanding, like, that is not how this works. Back to your Tao Te Ching quote, we are the ones that are learning and growing as parents. And it's amazing. And so many families, so many parents feel like, my kid didn't come with a manual. None of us did. And we're not doing it wrong just because we don't know what we're doing. And
yeah.
So that.
I love it.
Accountability. Back to clarity is kindness. So. Oh, but there's also growth in like failure, and I've noticed that a lot more too. Like, especially as he's getting a little older, like allowing him to fail while he's under, my care, while he's
Yes.
safe, right?
Yeah.
He's such a powerful way of taking care of that whole example that you're sharing, like about being a team and communicating and connected. So
yeah.
Right. Yeeks. So Cathy, do you have any final thoughts or reflections to relay to us as we wrap up here?
I could not say enough about, and I'm not exaggerating, on a daily basis and working with leaders as they are putting these very same tools and processes into practice. I see right in front of my eyes, they are more confident and more excited. They're more sure of themselves, and they're more satisfied in what they're creating at work, what they're creating at home. I absolutely love hearing, "Oh, I'm closer to my son because I'm practicing this at home." Like, those are the best examples and stories that keep me passionate about this work. And I would say to anyone listening to this, go create your own evidence.
Yes. Oh, I love that. There's so much. Hold on one second. I thought I had a babysitter, but Hazel's very demanding to come in and visit us.
She wants to be a part of the show.
She does. She's like, I hear my sister girl. Thank you, Cathy. Like, I just really appreciate you, and I love what you do and what you bring into the world, and have just admired you for many years and value all of your ideas and input in my life, and that you share with so many others in the world. So
thank you. And I love that this is what you're creating in the world. And it is guidance and support that is so, it's so sought after and so desired. And you're having an incredible impact. So I love that we continue to learn and grow together too.
Yes, always.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And if this conversation resonated with any of you out there, I'm sure it did, drop us a comment. Let us know, like, one way that you're focusing on how people do things in your life and how you've changed your contribution, your personal contribution. Tag a friend and share with a colleague or someone in your house who might benefit. And you can find Cathy at wingspanperformance.com or through LinkedIn. It's Cathy Maday, Maday, as you see on the screen. And I am Heather McElroy with Momentor, and you can find me at mymomentor.com or on LinkedIn as well. That's all. Thank you so much, Cathy. Oh, I have one last little fun thing. Join us again and ask the Parent Coach conversation. And in the meantime, pay attention to your contribution. 1 2-word check-in or intention at a time.
Oh, I love it.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
We'll see you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.